X-Men number 95. The X-Men are falling to their doom at the hand of Count Nefaria. Scott Summers has 100 seconds to figure out a plan to get the X-Men to the ground safely. Banshee and Storm can fly, and Nightcrawler can teleport, but Nightcrawler explains to Cyclops that when he rematerializes, he'll be headed toward the ground at the same velocity that he's going at now. And Banshee says that his sonic screams that keep him in flight won't carry two grown men, so Colossus decides that he's just going to morph into his metal form and hit the ground full speed. Storm will carry Wolverine and Nightcrawler, and Banshee's going to do his best to get Thunderbird to the ground and then come back up and grab Scott. Colossus lands with a bang, but he's unharmed. Storm gets Wolverine and Nightcrawler down safely, and Scott just waits, falling to the ground, basically having sacrificed himself for the X-Men just in hopes that somebody will come back and get him in time. And just in the nick of time, Banshee does. Now they've got to get into the building. Scott tells Nightcrawler to teleport inside, find access to the control panel, and open the exterior doors. Nightcrawler executes this with ease, but he does run into one of those Animen on the way. They have a bit of a brawl, but Nightcrawler whoops his ass. Once he gets to the control panel, though, that frog guy wakes up and kind of sneakily takes off behind him. Count Nefaria is watching the whole thing, and he sends the rest of the Animen team to stop the rest of the X-Men before they make it too far into the building. Nightcrawler lets everyone in, and suddenly everyone starts feeling a little woozy. There's a gas in the air that Count Nefaria has released to weaken the X-Men. So they use all their powers at once to bust through the wall to open up the room and get out of there. And this is when they run into building security. They've got to fight these guys too, but Scott makes sure they all know that they can't hurt these guys. They're just innocent men actually really doing their job in protecting the building. Storm says she's got a plan for that, and she summons a flash flood to take them out. It's safe to say Storm is proving herself to be a pretty valuable member of the team. They keep it moving, but Thunderbird is attacked by one of the ape Animen. The ape beats on Thunderbird and then chucks him at Banshee, knocking them both unconscious. An all-out brawl ensues, and the cat Animan tries to come for Wolverine while he's down, but Colossus has his back, and he takes the cat out. Together, Nightcrawler and Cyclops take out the frog Animen, next is the bird, and then the dragonfly lady comes down out of nowhere. She's got hypnosis powers, and she thinks that Cyclops' powers come from his glasses, so she makes the mistake of removing his glasses, and a punch of optical glass hits her in the face. Storm electrocutes the ape, and Wolverine and Nightcrawler finish him off. The X-Men make their way into the control room and find that Nefaria is gone, and he's activated a self-destruct sequence on the Doomsmith. Scott freaks out, but immediately is stopped by Professor Xavier popping into his head, telling him that something more dangerous altogether is happening outside. All the damage that the building sustained during the brawl knocked out the Doomsmith anyway, and they need to get out there and save Banshee and Thunderbird now. You see, while the brawl was going on, Banshee and Thunderbird woke up, and they caught Count Nefaria taking off. Thunderbird jumped onto Count Nefaria's aircraft and started beating the shit out of it, and Count Nefaria's like, "Bro, you're gonna kill us both, what the fuck is wrong with you?" Professor Xavier pops into his head and tells him the same thing. He tells him to stop. Banshee is yelling at him, and everyone's watching from a distance. There's nothing they can do. And Thunderbird actually causes the airplane to explode. Professor Xavier is mind-linked with him right now, and he experiences Thunderbird's death completely as if it was his own. Banshee comes back down, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I really tried to stop him. But there was nothing any of them could do. Thunderbird died, and he took Count Nefaria with him." X-Men number 96. Cyclops is alone in the forest, burdened and brooding. It's been weeks since Thunderbird's death, and he still can't get over it. He feels responsible for the way the Thunderbird died, taking down Count Nefaria's jet. If he can't keep the X-Men safe, who can? He sulks over it, and he beats himself up about it, and he loses control of his optic blasts. They shoot straight out through his visor and destroy a stone formation and all these trees, and none of this makes him feel any better. Now he just feels responsible for making a mess of this forest. But behind him, the stone formation starts releasing this pink gas. Back at the mansion, the X-Men train in the danger room, and Professor Xavier wants to have a word with Banshee. Banshee notices that Professor Xavier looks like he hasn't been sleeping well lately, and Professor Xavier changes the subject by telling him that a woman's going to come by and start doing the housekeeping in the mansion. Her name is Moira McTaggart, and Banshee is taken with her. The X-Men gather for tea, and Professor Xavier says that Moira's actually going to be taking care of the house while he's away. Just as the X-Men are asking where he plans to be, Cyclops bursts through the front windows of the home, fighting a demon. This demon calls himself Kirok and makes a bunch of threats against the X-Men. So they each take turns trying to beat him up, but the only one who actually does any damage to him is Wolverine. And even that doesn't keep him down. That's when Professor Xavier decides to psychically connect with Kirok to find his weakness. And he does, but it causes him crazy agony. Professor Xavier is knocked out on the floor, and everyone's still fighting this beast. Even Moira McTaggart ran to the armory to grab a gun. Professor Xavier tells Storm exactly where to go. When he was connected with the beast, he realized that he emerged from the cairn that Scott blew up in the forest. Storm goes there immediately, and there's demons everywhere. She plans to attack the cairn, but before she can, it attacks her with a bolt of energy that knocks her temporarily unconscious. Flashes of memories from her childhood run through her mind. A feeling of claustrophobia scares her out of her blackout, and as the cairn tries to suck her in, she flies out of it, destroying it on her way out. As she does this, the demon in the mansion dies. Cut to an installation in the Adirondack Mountains where Dr. Stephen Lang is working on something he calls Project Armageddon. He's in the final stages of his project that will eliminate the mutants, and all he needs is the approval from a Colonel Rossi. But Colonel Rossi sees it differently. He tells Dr. Lang that this is an illegal appropriation of funds and that the mutants aren't even a threat. Dr. Lang says, nobody can stop me. And Colonel Rossi's like, I can stop you. But before he gets the chance, Dr. Lang has him killed, along with everyone else aboard his flight out of there. X-Men number 97. Banshee was right to suspect that the professor hadn't been sleeping well. In fact, he'd been having nightmares for months. He dreams of two Starfleets, creating their own Armageddon in the desolate space around a giant binary sun. The bug-like spacecrafts destroy each other, and many men die. These dreams have been going on for 100 nights, and the professor thinks he's going crazy. He wakes up sweating and shaking, and Moira tells him that he's been taking too much on. The professor hopes that the leave of absence he'll be taking soon will ease him of his stress. Meanwhile, Alex Summers and Lorna Dane are living a quiet life in Rio Diablo and falling in love, but their peace is cut short when they're both attacked. Lorna by an unseen figure that she seems to recognize, and then Alex by Lorna. It's clear that she's not in her right mind, but what could be happening? A few days pass and it's time for Professor X's send-off. Some of the X-Men gather at the airport. Banshee doesn't come because he's too busy hanging out with Moira, and Wolverine doesn't come either because he just doesn't really do this mushy-gushy stuff. But Jean shows up, and Nightcrawler's able to come too, now that he has an image inducer that Tony Stark made him that makes him look more human and less blue. The professor boards the plane, and in walk Lorna and Alex, fully in costume as Havoc and Polaris, and Scott is shocked. He's like, what the fuck are you guys doing here in costume? Immediately, Jean senses that something is not right with them both, and Polaris attacks her in front of everybody, and the team springs into action. Even the pilots of the plane that Professor X is on see what's going on, and they decide to take off as soon as possible. Havoc tries to shoot down the plane, and Nightcrawler manages to stop him, but ends up inadvertently aiming Havoc's blast at another plane, and completely destroying it. The shock of this kind of wakes Havoc up for a sec, and he tells Cyclops that he's not in control of himself. But the Havoc and Polaris are actually following the orders of Eric the Red. Storm decides that she needs to get Jean the fuck out of here, so she grabs her and swoops her up into the sky, only to be followed by Polaris and shot down. She drops Jean and manages to catch her, but now she's pissed. So her and Polaris go all the way at it, and Storm doesn't hold back at all. Havoc sees this and rushes to Polaris' aid. Nightcrawler and Colossus try to take on Eric the Red and end up beating up another airplane. And out of nowhere, Banshee and Wolverine shows up, so Professor X must have mentally told them to get their asses down there and help the X-Men fight. But on their way in, Eric the Red's on his way out with Polaris and Havoc. And Cyclops debates about shooting them down, but his brother's up there, so he, really hesitates. Wolverine calls him gutless, and Cyclops punches the shit out of him. Now Wolverine's claws are out, and he's about to tear Cyclops a new one. Until Storm, who's clearly the strongest one here, tells Wolverine, you're not going to do that. If you try to go to him, you're going to have to go through me. So this whole trip to the airport just pretty much became a mess, and they have no idea that Dr. Michael Lang's actually the one behind the scenes manipulating the whole situation.